All right, it is May 23rd at 5:33 p.m. I will call the meeting to order for the Lawrence Community Shelter Board of Directors. And just quickly roll call, we got Shannon online and Chuck in the room. Elizabeth is not here. John is here. Rebecca is not here. Christine is not here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're good. I didn't realize there's going to be a attendance challenge tonight, but we have enough to proceed with our meeting. So we'll go ahead then. The first item on the agenda, or the next item on the agenda, is approval of the agenda. The only change I made since sending out the draft is I just inserted a draft motion for consideration to help with item 3 under the financial report. Otherwise, it's same as what was sent out. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. First item on our regular agenda. Is Karen still trying to join us? Okay. Oh, there's Rebecca. All right. Is Karen going to join us remotely or?
Probably remotely.
Okay. Welcome, Rebecca. Yeah, it was, they didn't have the one we normally take.
What's going on here, Dave?
All right, we will maybe just skip the financial statements for now and just jump right into the discussion about a line of credit. Tonight with us is Janet Lynn Zuck.
Mhm.
She is our banker for the last 5 years. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
And we have banked with Bank Midwest since 2011, when the shelter purchased the current building that we're in. That was, as best we can tell, the beginning of our relationship. And we are, the exec committee has been looking at our financial situation and recognize that if any payment we receive or don't receive on time with the city of Lawrence, if that ever becomes a problem in terms of when it gets received, it can create quite a financial strain on us, because in the last couple of years, the budget essentially we've operated at a deficit. And so there's very little funding left in reserve to manage cash flow. And so in order to address that, in the financial policies and procedures manual that we're going to consider later tonight, there's a policy statement around how we would manage a line of credit. And then we wanted to kind of bring it tonight and have the discussion about the line of credit, so that everyone can feel like they're comfortable with authorizing James to proceed with the process to establish that line of credit. So with that, I'll let Janet Lynn, she has a few words to say, and then we can talk about that.
So I thought I'd offer myself here to be able to answer any questions and to be able to kind of provide insight from the bank's point of view when it's appropriate to lend to a nonprofit organization for this purpose. And one of the, we actually have a specialized group that works specifically with nonprofits. And when I was thinking it through, one of the primary areas that a for-profit business would look at getting a line of credit for would be management of accounts receivable. So, and that's just for being able to manage when, because a lot of times work is completed prior to receiving funds for those, the work that has been completed. And so nonprofit financing can be seen in a very similar light, but we are providing a service that allows the nonprofit to finance their grant funding in advance of receiving it. And especially, you know, so in some ways it's, looking towards, protecting against shortfalls and things like that, but it's also for emergency preparedness and for, events in which you've been possibly asked to expand services in which you have not received the funding, but it has been pledged. And so it allows you to be a lot more flexible, to be able to address emergency situations, you know, like if we have, you know, a month-long heat, expenditure this summer where we're at over 100 degrees worth of temperatures, which we've seen over the last couple of summers. And, you know, there needs to be some emergency housing provided that it will allow you guys the flexibility to provide those services and be able to pivot a lot more quickly. The bank's expectation in those circumstances is that the funds are paid back in full. We don't want to be providing a line that is potentially something that could be seen as long-term. Because it's part of our job to be a responsible lender and provide something that is not going to cause undue harm to the organization as well. And so it's, you know, it would be like the financial policies that you have in place and policies. Charlie was kind enough to kind of review some of those things with me, and it seems very much in line with the bank's thinking as far as, you know, that it be in policy with the mission of the organization and things like that. So, and nonprofit lending is a little bit different too, because we don't look at it from a profitability standpoint. We just look to make sure that there is a 1-to-1 ratio, that you have $1 of income for every $1 of debt, and that's sufficient to cover to make sure that it's paid. So typically it requires some significant reporting of finances, and it could involve having quarterly documentation provided to the bank to make sure that we're still doing the responsible thing as far as providing that service, and definitely an annual review. So that just gives kind of a basic overview, and but definitely open to any questions that anybody might have.
Thanks, Janet. Lynn.
I'm the treasurer, I'm Rebecca Gaston, I'm the board treasurer, and I don't have any questions at this time, but I appreciate that you offer this service, because I've seen it as a grantee and as a grantor, and I think a lot of like the bigger government grants they are reimbursement based, and so that can put a nonprofit in a kind of tough situation, so we really appreciate this service.
Yeah,
absolutely, for us, thank you.
Yeah, and we have our nonprofit lender is actually going to be in town the week of June 27th, we decided. So
Yeah.
we're gonna make an effort to get him out here to get to meet and hopefully get a tour, and so get to really see. Like it's not a simple process. It's time consuming. So it's like, especially when it comes to nonprofits. So I expect it to take a couple of months, but it'd be nice to get him to actually get to see who he's working with. So he's out of Colorado.
Yeah, so they were planning to come to Kansas City or the area. So they said while they're coming, they like to stop in Lawrence and meet with us. And I said, that's perfect timing. It's when our next board meeting happens. So I thought, you know, if it works out for them, they could come on the 27th that evening and give us an update on where we're at in the process, assuming that we all move forward today to authorize James to do this. And I'm assuming they'll get a chance maybe to look at the shelter. You know, essentially what we're starting with is the assumption that we would be able to put the property itself up as the security on the loan or on the line of credit. Part of the process is really going through the legal process to establish like what the security would be, given that the city has a mortgage or a lien on the property. And so we'd have to work through that process. And I feel like what this is going to do is establish essentially a third-party review or a financial situation, and I believe provide a lot of assurance to not only our board, but to our community that we've got things in order. I think in the last several years, there's been concern about that. And this will provide greater confidence. That's my hope at least. So,
So our only ability, and we just think through this for right off the cuff. Our main protection and our desire to have this, I'm gonna call it bridge loan. If there's a gap in our receiving funding that was anticipated or budgeted. Major portion of that would be from the city of Lawrence. And at the same time, the city of Lawrence basically holds the key to whether we can pledge the security of the property or not.
Correct. right,
So we're just kind of turning the whole operation of the city's decision-making process.
I think there are other ways that we might be able to secure a line of credit. So this, using the property as the security for the line of credit is probably the most straightforward. But there are other ways they can do that. For example, the contract with the city can be used as collateral. So I think we want to pursue kind of the, allow the bank to go through its process and work that out. But we've already had that discussion around, like, if the city says no, then what do we do? There's also even a bigger consideration around, the note with the city comes due in 2 more years. And so we could refinance the entire debt. We could also consider maybe rather than a line of credit, actually take out a mortgage on the property to do upgrades, like, some more significant improvements, like building a 2nd floor where storage could be reestablished. So we've kind of had all these discussions, and I think tonight hope was, let's at least get the process started. And it's going to take some time. It's also going to take some money to be able to go through that process. And
Tonight,
So I think it's a crucial step.
yeah,
I think we have to have that available as a backstop
mhm,
so that we can avoid any issues that may be temporary shortfalls based on
right,
funding schedules, but.
the nice thing is we're, we're not in the business of providing something that is not to be beneficial. And we're really good about helping come up with long-term plans. And so, and if, when the review is done and all is said and done, and it's not beneficial, we're not, we're going to tell you that too, and say, this is not the right time. And these are the metrics that would need to be met to make it the right time. And, because we don't want to do anything ever that could harm the shelter in any shape or form. The idea is to come up with something that is going to benefit you guys. And it's going to benefit the community as a whole. And so, so I would take this as an opportunity from, to explore and look at it from that 5-year lens and say, and that's the way I think of it in a lot of ways too, is just like, what needs of the shelter going to be potentially having, as far as impacting the overall community and our community of the homeless as well. How can we bring and you guys have lots of dreams to help the entire community. So it's how can, and banks are really good at helping them. It's just having the right conversation and with the right partners too. So having a nonprofit specialist really helps a lot.
So the nonprofit specialist, is he employed by your bank or is he? Oh,
Yep, he does government financing too, so, which is essentially a nonprofit.
yeah. So how it would look is Janet Lynn would essentially hand over our account to them, and then they would become our bankers. It's Rob and Whitney.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. So we had a call with them, was it a week ago, I guess, to
Just to get
Yeah,
information.
just to kind of let them hear our story. And we've provided already some, the financial documents kind of so they understand like that we were why there's a significant change in our revenue this year. The city contract is significantly higher, that sort of things. All right. Shannon, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there?
Nope, I think it's a good idea.
Well, if there's, you guys are ready, I'd entertain a motion. I've put together a draft motion if you would want to use that.
All right, I'll do it. I move that we authorize the executive director to establish a line of credit on behalf of Lawrence Community Shelter in an amount not to exceed $500,000. The executive director will determine the terms and conditions of this line of credit in consultation with the executive committee, ensuring that they align with the best interests and financial policies of Lawrence Community Shelter.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. All right, the motion's been made and seconded to authorize James to establish a line of credit. Is there any other discussion about the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Oh,
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Do you have something else you wanted to say?
I would say like, and I'm available for questions at any time, so
Thank you.
as your partner and like. And happy to everybody should have my email and just don't hesitate to reach out at any time, so.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to say?
No, you're good. I was hoping you would get Karen here. Is she on her way?
I know, I really wanted to meet her too, so I've not gotten the opportunity yet.
Well, we will, I guess, move down to the executive director report. So
Thank you for entertaining us, yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
all right.
So this week I sent demographic reports. One of the things that is different this week, you will see one from the village. So
Where do you want to
we
start?
finally got the program submitted into HMIS and we're able to get data put in. It's not all in, but every day we're putting more and more in. So I wanted to make sure I emphasize that data. I know if Christine was here, she would talk about the demographics about, if you look at 50% of the people are just have some type of disability on the village. That stuck out to me when I looked at this, it just kind of stuck out to me. Well, they were chronic homeless, and chronic homeless is being homeless for a certain amount of time and after disability. So that's kind of interesting that that's how the census of residents is definitely needed. We did actually have 3 people exit from the village. I think it was in the latter part of April, or it might have been early in May. 3 people went to permanent housing. I don't know, I didn't talk about that last one. There was a lot of stuff going on with that.
Is the, I recall there being discussion about selecting certain people that would go to the village because they might have a higher probability of getting into permanent housing.
No,
Is that,
we don't.
Okay. so I'm looking at the disability, is that something that,
That's part of the.
The
being
screening?
disabled is part of the criteria. to
Okay.
be in the village.
so the criteria, are they intended to increase the likelihood that someone would be there that could be transitioned to permanent
No,
housing?
it just means that the criteria we chose are people that have a higher acuity.
Okay,
In homelessness, and so we wanted to say that they should be prioritized to have the option to go to the village.
okay,
So we do a lot of this because of PTSD and things like that. Disabled, elderly, disabled, we do victims of domestic violence, and then we use chronic homelessness, but That's kind of, most of the folks that we see are probably chronic cold. But that is the category also. But we see a combination of something. We had 3 people exit, 1 person exited to housing that's, without a voucher or without anything, he moved into permanent housing. Then we had 2 people that used a HUD badge voucher, and moved into permanent housing, they actually moved to the speaker. It's great. They work out. So they moved to the speaker.
Can I ask just a, real quick, so I'm understanding? So in these. Yeah, in these reports, so we're looking at, we're listing. 34. Clients, so, okay, and. But are we, okay, so 2 questions on this. Number 1, I know that we have provisions for if there was a couple for 2 people being in. Location. Is that a frequent or is that a rare?
It's, even though we have 2 people in one, we actually give them each their own cabinet because the spaces are really small.
Right.
And 2 people have a lot more than 1 person, so we do give them 2.
Okay.
So it's, you know,
So
there are a lot of couples that are home together. And some are been couples for a long time, and some are just couples, you know, they want to be couples with each other. So right now, we don't have any discrimination. But we kind of identify their needs before they come in and what that would be. We even have some people that might be couples, but they don't cohabitate. So what we've been able to do is not, traditionally in a lot of shelters or environments, we say you cannot go in somebody else's space. But at the village, we say you can visit somebody, you can be in their cabin. But you know, we monitor that.
So now as I understand it, we are fully occupied.
We have maybe 3 openings now, 4 openings.
Okay.
When we started to go through our list, we have a list of over 50 people. All right, waiting on this again.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was thinking. It's like we're using a 34 count of clients on these reports. I wasn't sure if that was just a matter.
That was in April. This is for April. So now it was maybe in here, we did fill up.
Okay.
So we did get up to that. But that was. I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything else that stands out here. And I know every week when we get these, and I didn't give you enough time to preview, maybe I'll give you more time to preview.
Sure.
Maybe if something stands out.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So, James, just real quick, I didn't fully understand the answer to Chuck's question. Do we actually have any homes that have 2 people?
Yeah.
In
Yeah, they sleep in one, but they have 2.
okay. That, so the second person has their own space. You know?
Each of them have their own individual, but they are a couple.
I got you.
And so
Okay.
So it'd be like spending the night.
Pardon me?
It'd be like spending the night with your partner, even though you have your own place.
I'm curious because like, I don't know anything about it, but do they really have like one person, other person, or do they keep like lots of stuff in the other place?
I
Because it's
don't-
so low, like, you can't have 2 people in stuff. Probably.
They keep stuff in both of them.
Yeah.
The one that they usually sleep in. People are different. Sometimes the one that they don't sleep in is pretty cluttered. And the other one is kept neat, but some people are cluttered in both. And it's just people, you know. One of the things we are trying to do is really reestablish some of our expectations with the way the cabins are kept. So we're working on that.
At one point, I had some vague sense of there was also being discussed some level of auxiliary storage.
We do have a storage, we have a half container over there. But we have a storage container, that people can utilize.
Okay, so that is available.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay. That's what it's for. Just because we know how small it was, I said I might as well go in, and I think we bought it. Because I know we're gonna need one, there was no other place there was no buildings there, so we had money for storage. So that's been going pretty good.
Where are we at today with the timing on curfews?
Curfew's at 10 p.m.
10 p.m., 7 days a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, so that means that an individual, and this could be old information as well. So individuals have the ability to code into the site, is that correct? Is there a security?
This is like,
Okay, so an individual could arrive after the curfew time. But that basically puts, if they haven't been authorized for a late arrival, that puts them kind of in a consultation, or is there
one of
a
the,
follow-up the next day? with-
that was followed up immediately upon return because they have to turn in their key to get their swipe card. So they don't have a key to their cabin when they leave.
Okay,
That's ideal, and what we have to do is make sure that when we're doing rounds, that people are not there, we're checking to make sure that their doors are locked. Well, they can't get back in, so they have to come and get their key, but they check in. If somebody comes in and they don't turn their card in, that means, hey, you must have the door unlocked, or there's some other reason, and there's one way to get in, you can get it, so it's kind of hard to do that, so. That was a way to kind of control and know at any time the comings and goings of people. That's what it's been working.
now, there obviously has been some a couple of media references with the village in the last week or so. Are those things that you would want to speak of at this point?
Bring them up, I'll answer any question you pose.
Okay, there was a report of a violent interaction with one of the guests. And some damage that was done as a result of that as well.
I don't think it was incident that was.
A hatchet.
Oh, was that last month or this one?
No, it was just in the paper.
It was?
Yep.
That happened over a month ago.
Right. Yeah, I think,
So I'll explain what happened. So our DSAs are in offices in the evening, I think it's around 9 o'clock maybe. I think it's kind of dusty outside. And they heard it clanking, so they looked at the cameras, they see an individual with a hatchet banging on something. I don't know if they're banging on the door or whatever, but they had a car to get in, they could get in. So when that individual came in, he didn't even come to the cabin, he walked towards his cabin, he didn't come to the office. And he realized, I don't have a key to get in, so he came to the office and he was confronted with, that's not allowed here, if you like, you can turn that in and we will give you your key, but you can't have that on the property unless you take it in. That person didn't appreciate that, had some choice words, and the DSAs did not budge, and this individual broke the window and said, give me my key. So they threw the key out the door, closed the door, he threw the hatchet down and went to his cabin, and they called the police and he was there. So that's what happened.
had this individual, had there been any
No.
indications of violent behavior for anyone else?
I was told that he didn't even have a history of that, but that does not negate what took place, and I was told that we didn't de-escalate well, but somebody had to ask. I don't know how anybody else would do, but I wouldn't ask anybody to go out there and confront somebody that's cussing and saying, take it from you, if you want to come take it. They didn't want to take it, so they didn't let him open the door. And he wanted his key and he broke the window and he got his key, which I commend them on, that's what they should have done. But they should have called the police first. They waited to that.
Okay, so just a kind of a follow-up question, just operational. So in a situation like that, and then the emergency services arrives, police or an ambulance or something of that nature. do they have immediate access or how?
Yes,
Okay.
the village is operated on the city's Salto system, so all city police officers, I think even the county can get in without having to be buzzed, and they have access to it. So, and I've worked out with the major, Hayden Fowler, what protocol that police officers will buzz or will not buzz. And so for calls of that nature, they don't have to buzz, they come right in. Certain calls, they'll ring the bell, but if they need to come in, they can come in, and I told them that it's okay, as long as they follow that protocol, I will.
And you said that this individual that was exited from.
Well, this individual was arrested.
Right.
He was arrested.
Now, and you had said there have been, a couple of other individuals that have been exited from the village in the time. Now, is that, a situation? How is that, enforced or disciplined? I mean, if somebody, I'm assuming we've got, written code of conduct and things like that. Are there appeals steps?
Yes, of course,
Okay.
of course. Actually, we've had a few people appeal, we've had about 7 people exited from the building since it's opened. Some people self-exited by not returning. They've been exited, and then some have been asked to leave because of rule violation.
And have any of those, I guess I'm kind of wondering what if anything would ever come to us as a board. I'm not sure where we stand in any of that appeal process or anything of that.
I don't know, I've just did a appeal and the exit stood. And I believe if somebody had a further, wanted further recourse, they could appeal the appeal, and I think that would go to the board at that time.
We should have a policy about that though, right? Like, I feel like we should, it shouldn't be.
That should be the last step, that if they're still not satisfied, but it should go to the board or somebody else.
So, back in December, I think we tasked the exec committee to kind of get a handle on all of our policies and start to queue them up, and we're working through the financial policies first. But there's a few others in there, and I think under the future agenda items, I've got village operations manual. The exec committee talked about which ones are the highest priority, because the list has got over 20, 30 different policies, and even recently we discussed maybe the need to think through which policies actually need board approval or board review or are just internal policies, and maybe we need a policy on policies essentially. And really thought, kind of going back to when we had more interaction with Melanie, one of her great skills is doing this sort of work. So we asked James if we might have Rebecca work directly with Melanie to kind of shore up the spreadsheet that was initially created for us to kind of make sense of the policy reviews that we're going to do. But that was literally like last week's meeting. The exec meets every week on Mondays, so it's like we gotta trying to kind of stay tuned to like this policy review thing we have to get done. But it is unclear, like, do we want to actually have every policy get approved, or we just need to distinguish like which things are really critical the board should be the final decider on? Because we're also trying to be careful. We're not, we hired James to run the operations, and maybe it's important to kind of find the line where we're doing governance work, he's doing operations work. But then when it comes to concerns around liability, then we might want to have some maybe awareness of operational policies, and that's kind of what we have to figure out, is where does that line get drawn? And I think hopefully we'll come up with something that'll make sense, and maybe we bring that back to this board to say, here's where we're sitting with these things we think are board, these are internal. Some of them are obviously internal, so it's like when you look at the list, it feels. You could almost, we kind of put down some draft ideas like this is an internal. This is board review, this is board approval. So,
So.
have you guys had a meeting yet?
We haven't, I
Okay.
need to follow up about that, but one thought I had with this appeal policy, like, maybe we could have a committee, like an appeal committee of the board, because I feel like I do so much direct service in my day job at Kansas School of State Defenders, not just me doing civil, like eviction defense, but a lot of my, like my boss, I've like sent him to James, but I've said, I'm on the board, I don't want to be involved in individuals. I feel like that's overstepping my role as a board member, and so they can work with James directly. And so I don't think the whole board maybe should vote, but maybe we have 3 of us or something that's committee
Yeah.
possibly, just is my initial thought, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really made a lot of definition of what the advisory committee does.
Hmm.
Maybe they have a role in that sort of thing. So I don't think Elizabeth or Christina are on the call, but they've been leading that group up.
Right, and then I guess the last item on, most immediately on this topic was the departure of the manager of the village. Is that something that can be talked about in this meeting, or is it something that is a personnel item?
It is a personnel item, but I can say that she resigned. She submitted her resignation.
If you're interested in having more discussion, we could go into executive session to discuss personnel matter of a non-elected official.
I feel like I would like to have, because I think it's an important topic. So I would like to have at least some level of understanding of the situation.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion? I'm gonna,
Immediate format from the previous ones I could read off of, or is this?
I can find one.
Can I ad lib to say, I move that is it proper to say, are we adjourning into executive session? To discuss personnel matter. And that we will return to our meeting.
He's bringing one up.
Give me a second here.
By 6:25.
There you go.
You're getting there.
You're doing better than he is right now.
I feel like we did something recently, or which meeting it was.
Did a lot of.
And there's something like no decisions will be made during the course of this.
It's definitely the last meeting.
Yeah.
Definitely the last meeting.
Thanks, Karen. Let's see.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah, because that was the collective bargaining thing.
Oh, that was for consultation with the attorney.
But,
Yeah, it's got a
It's just-
different, it's a different.
It's just the same, it's just the same motion, but just say to discuss a non-elected personnel matter.
Here, I got it.
turn one off.
I did that
Oh,
just to
okay.
kind of not bear all of our souls here. Okay. What time do you want to reconvene? And do you want to have anybody besides James?
Pardon me?
So who else do you want to have in the conversation? Just James and the board?
I can make this motion.
Yes,
Proceed with this, okay.
yeah,
I move that we go into executive session to discuss a matter involving non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319. Boy, this is a eye chart. 81. The justification for the executive session is to protect privacy interests of persons involved or reconvene in an open meeting in meeting room B at 6:30 PM. After the executive session is concluded, no action will be taken during the executive session. Persons included. Yes, shall be James.
okay. I guess I could have shared that, I'm sorry, for those online.
I'll second.
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session to discuss a matter involving non-elected personnel. Is there any discussion on the motion? Right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Any,
I,
any opposed, say nay. The motion passes. I will fire up a breakout room for you, Shannon.
okay.
Policy relating to assessing community resources, utilizing graduated disengagement to connect service participants to naturally occurring and sustainable resources, and integrating group and team supervision to ensure fidelity in the delivery of the model. It was a good training. The city hosted the training for multiple agencies, and went pretty well. We had de-escalation training for our staff. We had it on 2 occasions. We were only able to get 13 staff to the de-escalation training, but it was held by the Lawrence Police Department. De-escalation training focused on equipping individuals with the skills and strategies necessary to effectively manage and diffuse potentially volatile situations. This training provided techniques for calming tense interactions, enhancing communication, and promoting a safer environment for both service providers and the individuals they serve. Coming up at the end of this month, we're gonna do some mental health first aid. And then that's gonna be, one of the problems with the shelters, we have shift workers, and so it's hard to do all our staff at one meeting if it's offered. So what we're gonna start to do is try to circle back and do some reoccurring meetings. So we're gonna try to schedule some more de-escalation to get all of our staff there with mental health first aid. We have some staff slated to go to that, I think it's next week, but we also have a person on, staff that does mental health, first aid training, so they're gonna be able to follow up and get all of our staff trained. So that's gonna be really important. Wellness Wednesday is next week, last Wednesday of the month. We're gonna change that, so from now on, it's gonna be the last Wednesday of the month. I'm thinking, I'm in a lot of meetings where I talked about this, but I haven't talked about this in the board meeting, so I was just getting my thoughts together. We're gonna have the, Lawrence Humane Society is gonna be there. We're gonna have, the person, Richard Martinez, is gonna be doing phones. He's actually gonna be training, Brett and Dare to actually do phones also, so I think he'll still do Wellness Wednesday, and Brett will be able to do those on a daily basis at the Dare Center.
Can you tell the group more about the phones?
The phones
Yeah, I don't
are,
know if everybody's.
everybody is affectionately known as Obama phones. So if people are receiving some type of, assistance, they're eligible for a phone. And so they have these service providers that provide phones or tablets. It comes with, free calls and free Wi-Fi. So it's a good tool for people to have access.
Great
The
tool.
Lifeline program, is that what it's called?
So,
Lifeline?
yeah, it could be like one. That's one of them, I think. There's different providers that do that. Yeah. And so anybody in any agency can get trained to do that. And there's a percentage people make money, doing that for a phone. So I think the last one was Wednesday. I think he only had tablets at the time, but he was able to give out 10 or 11 tablets. So he's gonna come back next week and do that again. It's a good resource. I think that's about all I have. Anybody have anything, questions for me?
No?
I guess this is maybe tangential, but, just thinking about the overall community, the point in time count, I mean, are we close to having that information provided for this year? Do you know? Have you had any interaction?
No, but I can definitely look into that. That's done by the Kansas Statewide Homeless Coalition. I think they have them unofficial, but I don't think that if they submitted them to HUD so they can be official. I think they have some time to clean up data out of all the systems, and it's like 101 counties, so they're cleaning up data. I know we've had occasion to go through and clean up some of our data, and so we get our numbers right. One of the things that skewed our numbers is it looked like we had so many people enrolled in 9x90 because nobody actually exited. So on the day of the count, I think we had over 300 people enrolled, but it's only they're enrolled for a certain amount of time, and then if there's so many days that they don't come, then they're exited from the program, so we had to clear that number up, so things like that. So they're doing that in all the, cities that, or all the agencies in the state that have the service of their cleaning of data. They should be ready to publish those numbers. I haven't had an official yet.
I've seen some, not in Kansas, but I've seen other communities that have, provided that number for.
So it might be out, but I have not gotten an official notice to look.
So Jill's got something she wants to share.
Okay, Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
Oh, I was just gonna say, James, that Kristen Egan, who's our regional coordinator for the county, said that she thought that we'd have those numbers from HUD by July. And our plan is to have a public facing dashboard with whatever available information we can have on our A Place for Everyone website at that same time as well, if not sooner.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for your report? All right.
Nope.
Well, with that, we can move backwards then, go back to the financial report. Karen, you still on the line here? There you are, Karen.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
Yeah, sorry for
And,
the tardiness. I had to go
well,
get my
we had
kid.
plenty to discuss. All
It's
right,
good. Yeah, James tells me, oh yeah, it's been a while since I got to do my executive director's reports. Glad you were able to get that in today.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, Karen, I'm queuing up the prepared financial statements.
Yep, okay, so let's go over the balance sheet first. Cash is way up from last year, but down because we were waiting on the second quarter payment from the city. So we're still positive there. If we look at the liabilities, I think it was last month we had like 60,000 or something like that in accrued accounts payable. We didn't pay anything in April, just to make sure that cash was steady. So that's just accumulated from the last couple of months. Let's do the next page. We are still up again, mostly because of our grant revenue from the city. So we're looking good there. Donation wise, we could be doing a lot better. You know, we were about almost 20 grand more this time of year than we were last year. So it's time to do some campaigning. We're a little down on the foundations also. Again, this year, starting to track in kind, so that would be the discounts and volunteered time. And we still need to get together on the volunteers that come in regularly, what value that they've been adding, so that we can get that booked on to our financial statements.
Karen, can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
So when we're kind of putting under our revenue a donation, an in-kind donation, how does that, is there something on the expense side that offsets that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. So let's
so
say
it's kind of treated as it's kind of a wash, but this is giving us a better way to account for it.
right. So a good example would be we paid the vendor KB Painting to do the painting at the shelter, and they had given us a couple of discounts for their job. So the way that I book it is the expense is the net, or at least the payment to them is the net. And then the actual expense is the total they would have billed us had there not been any discounts. And then the
Okay.
discount for the in-kind. And so there should be other things in that account. So for instance, donated items and donated time, really, so volunteer time. And there's usually like a formula that organizations use to get that, and it just gets booked the same every month, kind of like depreciation. And so I don't think we've gotten to that point yet, but we're getting there.
So how would that show up under operating expenses?
It's an in and out. So it would be donations in kind, volunteer time, and then the expense side would be
There would be
whatever.
a line
Yeah.
that corresponds to it, okay,
Right.
interesting. I appreciate kind of having that awareness of where, we're receiving discounts or where we're getting volunteers, because it helps maybe to paint a fuller picture of our resource needs. And,
Yes.
also makes it clear, like pursuing discounts is a important and legitimate strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And KB Painting's been wonderful to us to offer those discounts. I think part of it was, I think the paint store was having a sale, so they passed that savings down to us. And then they also gave us like a 10% off discount on their labor. So Yeah, pretty generous.
Are we able to give that donation like an acknowledgement that they could use for tax purposes?
I'm not sure. I can look into that. Because the reason I'm hesitating is because I've been on this side of recording discounts, but not on the other side. So it would just be a matter of how they've got it recorded on their books. If we sent them something, they could, in theory, just go ahead and write a journal entry to make it as a donation. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So I'll look into that.
Well, I'm thinking if there's, someone who really goes above and beyond and donates their time and expertise, it would be nice to give them something as an acknowledgement, and if it helps them with their business, like
Right.
giving them a way to write that off on their taxes, that would be kind of mutually beneficial. Assuming it's all legal.
Well, and they can talk to their tax professional about it. We don't have to hear it after that,
Yeah.
but we can provide that.
Yeah, I just appreciate
Yeah.
kind of having it called out in our financial statements that this is actually part of how we
Yeah.
sustain ourselves.
Yep, for sure. And I'm thankful for my prior experience, having known that that's how it was accounted for with the other nonprofits. So very good, very good. Okay, so administratively or operating expenses, we are just about double where we were last year. But again, that's mostly to do with payroll. We have a lot more people working this year. Many of the improvements that we made to the shelter, and yeah, just trying to get the shelter in shape to where we need to be so that we can focus on the things that really matter. And I think a lot of that's starting to level out. And just in talking with James and some of the staff, it seems like we're able to start focusing on the programs and things that really need to be addressed at the shelter. So with that being said, we are spending way more than we are receiving in revenue. At least, again, the grants portion. Let me make sure I'm saying this right. The grants portion, at least on the budget, is split out monthly. So we have, when the budget was put together, it was just for the annual for the year. And again, when I told Kindred to have a budget comparison, to just split it out amongst the 12 months. So that, I forgot, we're on statements cash flow now. So yeah, we are, again, spending more than we're getting in. As part of business. And then let's go down to, I don't want to spend any time on just April activity. So let's go down to, let's see, page 8. There you go. Okay, so we budgeted for 1.1 million to be received in total revenues. We're under that by about 20%. So again, time to campaign, time to start strategizing on how we need to do fundraising. And yeah. In terms of operating expenses, we are under budget. So even though we've been spending a lot, considerably throughout the year to this point, we're under budget about 28%. So that's good.
Can I ask some specific questions in this regard?
Okay.
I guess one of the, and one is just kind of a policy related, I suppose. One of the things that I'm looking at in the operating expenses where we're under budget are what I see as the top of that list with the direct assistance. So that if I'm understanding this correctly and saying we had anticipated that, for instance, we would have paid out $2,500 in utility assistance, and we haven't paid out anything. And that's kind of the range of a lot of those direct, I believe that's a direct assistance, but I could be wrong in how that's being titled as. So to me, it would seem like the fact that we are under budget on those items is not necessarily a positive statement, meaning, you know, is there a reason we aren't providing this direct assistance as we had anticipated? So that's one question. The other question and this may have been discussed in meetings in the past, so I lose track of it, but under facility, the construction and improvement is listed as a negative expense of $10,000. So I'm assuming that is somehow transferred into another liability account, or is that being transferred into a leasehold improvement asset
Yeah,
account?
it should have been transferred into a leasehold improvement. So into an asset account. So it should not be on the profit and loss statement.
So I mean, that one somewhat confuses me, and another one, a line that confuses me a little further down is our insurance, the commercial property coverage, where we budgeted $10,000 in payout, expense in insurance, and we haven't paid anything. Is
So
that
if we look-
okay?
If we look at the next line, we net them together, we're kind of in that neighborhood. So I would just say this is more of like a class issue.
Okay, so we had not correctly delineated what was property tax, or property insurance, and what was general liability and insurance. Okay, I can understand that.
Yeah, so that's totally just like a coding type issue. Going back to your direct assistance comments, I would agree that does not look good, that we are under budget there. But I feel like that's more of a PSA day-to-day type operational thing. You know, I'm working remotely, and so the information that I get is as good as it's brought to me, you know. It could be that some of this is in other accounts, but I kind of doubt it, just because I think like the PEX cards typically take care of a lot of the direct assistance. And then there's some checks that get written from the direct assistance accounts. We have a separate bank account for that. So I just don't know if we've had people that qualified, or, you know, if we just not had the situations arise where we could write checks for direct assistance, or spend money for direct assistance. I just am not aware.
Is that something we could maybe come back to next month and see if you can give you some time to figure out what's
Or would
going
that be
on?
like a James question to you, more?
Yeah.
So a lot of that assistance, that utility assistance and security deposits are gonna come out when we start doing our rapid out, and we can enroll more people in rapid out now. I think when I got here in January, we didn't have anybody enrolled in rapid out. So now we have people enrolled, and we're actively looking for places where people will move into, so that will shoot up once we do that. and we provide assistance.
Yeah, I
So,
have
but I
seen,
don't know, Karen, the effects cards, is that being totaled on here?
yeah,
Coming out, okay.
Yep.
Cause I see we are spending money on identifications and birth certificates, things like that, we are doing
yeah,
that.
that has been the majority of direct assistance items that I've seen come through. But I will comment that in May, I have started seeing, I think I saw a rental deposit come through. There might have been another like a security deposit or utility assistance type thing. So they are coming through, but yeah, it's good that you're there, James, to kind of explain why there hasn't been too many expenses in those accounts.
We actually did get another, grant payment of $10,000 for clients direct assistance. We just got that on the 20th.
Nice.
I just sent a thank you back.
Okay, is there any more questions or any more to report on the financial statements? Then I would entertain a motion to accept our prepared April financial statements.
I move we accept the financial report.
And is there a second?
A second.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded to accept our April financial statements. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. And let's now go to consideration of financial policies and procedures. And I think, yeah, share my screen on that one. All right, long time coming. We've been working on this one for a while. And I feel like I really appreciate everyone's, final review. Got feedback from pretty much everybody, I think. So Karen's been very fastidious about getting it all incorporated in the last just few days. So thanks, Karen, for your work on this.
You're welcome.
I don't know how you want to walk through it,
Done with
Karen, but I'll let you tell me what to do here on the screen.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what you guys really want to cover in here. I did make some updates in terms, I know Elizabeth was really concerned about a fundraising policy. And so that is on page.
I know that exec committee, we've had plenty of discussion, but Chuck had provided quite a few, very, very good attention to detail, Chuck.
Yes.
And so I just wanted maybe you could provide sort of a response to Chuck's feedback, how you incorporated it,
Oh, okay, yeah. So,
since he's here. Elizabeth's not here with us tonight, but we
yeah.
can.
So for Chuck's comments, and to address what you had to say, a lot of it was like grammar, but then there are also some items that he asked for some clarification.
And consistency, I think.
Yeah. So I went through, made it consistent. Oh, okay, now I remember. One of the consistency issues that we had was that in some places we had James as being authorized to go ahead and approve any expenses $25,000 and under. But then in another place I had it at 20,000. And I think execs committee had agreed that 20,000 was more appropriate. But in order to maintain our ability to address situations quickly, I included a $10,000 window that wasn't cumulative. So like James would get $20,000 approval without needing board approval or the exec committee. But then between 20,000 and 30,000, he could bring something to the executive committee for approval. So they would be aware it's a high amount, but it wouldn't need to wait until the board meeting for action to be taken, especially there's a lot of expenses that kind of fall within that window. It's not, at least to me, it's not imperative that, you know, we need to sit down with the board and have them vote on an expense just in that range. So anything above 30,000 would require board approval. And I thought that that was fair, but when I say it's not cumulative, it wouldn't be like James couldn't approve like $20,000 of it, and then the exec committee approved 30,000 for a total of 50. It's just at 20,000, that's the threshold that stops for James and starts for the exec committee. The exec committee is up to 30,000. It stops there. Anything over that amount needs to be board approved. That way, board's aware of these more significant expenses, but it's not putting the brakes on some things that need done, but don't necessarily, they can't wait for the next board meeting for approval. That makes sense.
Yep, thanks for explaining that.
The other thing that Chuck had asked about was, I'm trying to find it. It involved bank reconciliations. So like the cutoff for bank reconciliation, how that needed to be in there. And my response to that is we can't have financial statements prepared without having the bank reconciliations done. So for every item that's on our balance sheet, those items can be proven. So cash can be proven. When you reconcile it, we can say, hey, we know that these checks are outstanding. And so that's what the difference is between the bank statement and what we're showing on our end. All of the liabilities can be proven because we have invoices. So like accounts payable, we have a note. So we have keeping track of all of that stuff. So every single item on the financials, on the balance sheet can be proven. And that's how we know and can be confident in what's there. So part of the reason he brought that up is because it said that the executive director would review bank statements. I've clarified it to say that he may review bank statements, but that's a primary responsibility for Charlie, the board president. And so it's not something where it's for Charlie's eyes only. It's kind of, we still have a control in place. James may look at it because he needs to be aware of what's going on in the bank account anyway. But ultimately, Charlie will be reviewing it for some unusual items. And of course, I'm monitoring it as well. I'm not responsible for bank reconciliations. Kindred is our third-party accounting firm. And so I put in here that we need to have them give us the bank reconciliations for board approval so that you all can see that too. This is kind of unusual for me because normally, or at least in my experience, we would prepare the financial, the firms that I've been with, we would prepare the financial statements and then we would also give the client their bank reconciliations to include their credit card reconciliations too. And that just has not been a thing. But it needs to be in here so that Kindred can do that for us. I think that was one of the conversations I had with Amanda a few months ago, and she goes, like, we kind of need it in the policy in order for them to act.
So basically, we have to tell them that's one of our rules.
Yep.
And then they can follow it.
Yes. And that would make me feel more comfortable too, because then we would be on the same page. Because right now I don't know. And that at that point, if a situation were to arise, like it almost did this week, where perhaps Kindred didn't have enough time before our board meeting to get prepared financial statements out, I would have needed to put something together for you guys. And I can do that, but I can't do that confidently without having a starting point for our bank accounts, if that makes sense. So, you
Yeah.
know, I can't know what checks are still outstanding. I would have to rebuild the whole thing, and that takes a lot of time. Um, so thankfully we got our financial statements out this week. But yeah, as soon as we get approval on these financial policies and procedures, we can forward it on to Kindred, and then we can start getting those bank reconciliations as part of our financial packet.
Okay.
And then going back to fundraising, I clarified the language so that it's more of a suggestion. I guess we talk about, at least in accounting, we have should or must. If it says that you should do something, it's like a best practice. You should do it because it's a good idea, right? If it says you must do it, there's no question. You have to do it. It's a requirement. So I've taken out most of the must. I kept 2 or 3, it seems. The board must ensure that there are active fundraising efforts. The board must take responsibility for guidance and direction, basically on how we use our budget and allocate funds for fundraising. And that budget appropriations for fundraising are evaluated regularly. So I don't think that in this year's budget, fundraising was high up on the priority list, especially because we didn't know where we were going to be at financially. So perhaps that is something that needs to be discussed in maybe an exec committee. Because I know after having some conversations with our director of community engagement, they weren't sure what was going to be permissible. I just said we would need to talk through that, because as the years gone on, we can see where we're under budget in some places. Maybe we can move funds around so that we can start having a fundraising campaign, spending money on perhaps mailers, or even start thinking about our next steps for planning an event. So and I know that Lacey and Megan have been working on some things together for that. But in terms of budgeting, that I think that's definitely something that we need to talk about soon, because it would be nice to have more donations coming in rather than heavily relying on grants for funds. The last note that I put in there was we've got a board member that cannot do any fundraising because it's in conflict with their primary responsibility. So I've put in there, barring any conflicts of interest that may compromise the integrity of a board member's primary role outside of LCS, board members are encouraged to participate to the extent possible. So maybe a board member can't do it here, but they can do it there. And I feel like that's what Elizabeth was saying is, she would be able to help with event planning. But then there's some other things that she can't quite do because of her role.
Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I heard conversation, so I wasn't sure if somebody was talking there.
No,
No.
is it a ghost in the machine?
Oh, all right. But yeah, so that was one of her primary concerns. And so her other concern was for future board members. She wasn't sure if having such stronger language that maybe maybe somebody would see that as like, okay, I'm required to be part of these fundraising things, that might discourage people from wanting to serve on our board, and especially since they are appointed. So I feel like this note kind of addresses majority of her concern. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know.
I feel like it does. I think you've done a great job of responding to everybody's feedback. I appreciate your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I do, I've heard most of the items that I had asked about, address. The one that I'm still not certain on has to do with the bank statement procedures that are delineated. Meaning if we go to page 4, I believe it is, at page 4, under the president, board of directors, I believe it's saying, and maybe I'm simply not
Are we on?
reading this correctly, but president, board of directors, the first item, opens all bank statements, reviews for any irregularities. And then on, I had noted it as page 21, but I think it's been renumbered with our changes here. I believe it's actually, yeah, it's going to be page 20.
Right.
The first item, it said all mail bank statements are given to the executive director unopened. The executive director may review bank statements. However, the board president is primarily responsible for review. So I think I'd still like to have something that I'm seeing that first statement of the president saying the president is receiving the unopened bank statement. I'm seeing this one saying that the ED is receiving unopened bank statement. I'd love
Okay.
that. You know, I'm fine with the idea that the president does not receive unopened bank statement and that is the ED, but I think it needs to be taken out of that.
It doesn't say I'm open under the president.
It does on the other
But it says they
page.
open the bank statements,
Yeah,
which this seems like kind of outdated language anyway, since we
Yeah,
have
so
computers now.
Keep that.
I can agree with that, because typically Charlie has access to the bank accounts, and when the bank statements are made available, they're made available digitally. So I think part of the thought process I had for leaving the unopened part is if we were to have, if we still have, and I'm not aware of this, we still have hard copy bank statements mailed to the shelter, that they would just be given to James unopened. So, whoever is handling the mail would not open bank things, but James could, and he could review it if he wanted to. If he didn't, then it could be passed on. And I can clarify that language, or I can just remove it completely.
I guess the thing I'm thinking about is that the role of the president and whether that item number 1 just says, instead of opens all bank statements, reviews for any irregularities, can that simply say reviews all bank statements for any irregularities and not
Okay.
talk about opening it? I mean, that still provides that oversight component without.
yeah, I agree. And then in that first line under the bank account reconciliations, it really is restricted just to mailed bank statements. So I think,
Okay. So on page 4, as part of the, excuse me, president of the board of directors responsibilities, it now just says reviews all bank statements for any irregularities and reviews completed monthly bank reconciliations.
yeah,
So for page 20 then,
I think it's fine the way it is.
okay,
Doesn't that, you're good with that, Chuck?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so what next?
So this is It's gotten really long. There's like 40 pages of record retention at the end. Which,
Yeah, that's an addendum. I packaged it together so you guys would see the totality of the work. 89 pages here.
that seems like maybe counterproductive, like,
You
have
know,
a policy
honestly, I think it's often overlooked that there's state law that compels us to keep records to a certain extent, and I think this puts it at, you know, essentially that's what you did, Karen, right? You
Yeah,
took the,
it's a direct copy paste from the Kansas Historical Society for just general record keeping for state agents or for agencies. So, and it has it broken down by document. And I think that having all of those specifically outlined will help us in the event that someone wants to solicit information from us due to the Kansas Open Records Act. And so ultimately what I would have liked to have done is just have like a summary. So it would have been 1 page, but due to time, I thought, okay, we'll just have it in here. It's an addendum. It's not something that needs to be, you know, fully within the financial policies and procedures manual.
Well, and I specifically recommended that we set out the timeframes because what we were putting in there before was, hey, you'll keep them as long as you're supposed to, but a lot of people don't know how long you're supposed to. And I think everybody who's subject to this policy needs to sign a thing that they received it. That way, if people destroy records that they weren't supposed to, we have it on file that they were made aware of the retention policy and how long things had to be kept, and they acknowledged that. And honestly, that historical society, when in doubt, go look. And it's right there. You're gonna give it to them right there. I mean, hopefully you're gonna send this out electronically or something and have people sign a 1-pager. Yes, I got it, and I'll abide by it.
My hope is to next month come to the shelter and have a training on this so that everybody is aware of what the expectations are, at least from an accounting perspective and our financial policies and procedures. So yeah, as part of that with record retention, definitely feel like it would be great to have some sort of accountability there. Yep, I've had a training on financial policies and procedures. I'm aware of the addendums that are on there and Cora. So everybody has a responsibility to make sure that our checks and balances are in place and, you know, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing at the shelter.
so one final point. I mean, should it just be limited to financial records retention requirements and not press releases or notary files or? In my experience, like, if you have a document that's too long, people are less likely to look at the whole thing. So if you focus on the things that are relevant, it'll be easier to follow.
So your point is to remove things that aren't specifically financially related from here, and then perhaps if someone wants to look it up, have a link to the Kansas Historical Society's record. So if they're unsure that they could do that, they could look there for something that.
Well, no, that's not what I said. I think like just removing it from, if it's not financial records related, like, I wouldn't put it in this policy. If it's related to communications and we need to keep the press releases, then put that in that particular policy, just so it's more functional.
Well, and I would agree with that, except for personnel records, which I think are relevant to this.
Okay.
Yeah, like the FMLA stuff is also referenced.
Okay.
All right, is there anything more that you wanted to go over, Karen?
No, I just, also made sure to clarify at the top there, in the event that any litigation claim or audit is started before the expiration of this prescribed retention period, that we have to keep keep those records until final action's taken, then we can destroy them.
Okay. Karen, can you tell us, what the recommended, like, review cycle will look like for this set of policies? Like annual review or every 2 years? What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like annually would be appropriate. I didn't put that in our policies and procedures because I felt like just it's best practice, I guess, but I can
Okay.
specify it in our policies.
Well,
We'll put it in
I'm-
policy.
I'm thinking the policy on
Policy.
policies is gonna probably prescribe what that schedule looks like.
Okay,
So that's what I wanted to hear your thoughts on.
okay,
So like,
Okay.
especially since this is relatively new, and I think we want to be good at this piece of our work. I like that it's every year we would take a look at this. Okay. So I think, I don't know how someone wants to make this motion, but it sounds like there's really just very small amendment to page 5. Or page 4, I'm sorry.
yeah, page
And
4.
then a kind of a review and retracting the non-financial record retention. So are you guys content with someone throwing out a motion tonight to approve this with this changes that are articulated in our meeting? Like, I don't know how you want to say it.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
okay. Who wants to take a stab at a motion? Shannon, where are you when we need you?
Yeah,
You're so
okay.
good.
But tell me what page the first one is on? It's on page 5 or section 5?
It's page 4, and it's
Okay.
the
It's the one
Fine.
about the bank statements.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
updated the language on my copy that I can send out to you guys to say reviews all bank statements for any irregularities and reviews completed monthly bank reconciliations. So just takes out that open all bank statements that were
Okay,
really the
all
open
right,
all.
I got it. So I
Um,
make a motion that we approve this policy with the revisions as outlined about opening bank statements by the board president and with the suggested changes to the addendum based on the records being financial, personnel, and anything covered in this policy and eliminating the ones that do not relate to this policy.
Thank you, Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, the motion's been made and seconded to approve these financial policies and procedures manual, I guess. With those minor edits. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. And Karen, thank you very, very much. I know this has been a lot of work.
Good job,
And,
Karen.
you know, I know you were brought on board by James several months ago, and I don't know if you knew fully what we were expecting out of it.
nope, nope.
But this is
So,
Yeah, was not expecting
Yeah.
all that's happened so far, but we're
well,
here.
this is super helpful.
Thank you.
so Charlie, I want to confirm that you still have a quorum because I'm gonna have to jump off to get ready.
Yep, we do.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect,
Thanks for staying on. Rebecca showed up, so we're good.
perfect, great.
Sorry,
Okay.
Rebecca. She was just a few minutes.
Oh,
late. Nothing
yeah.
really.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we're back. I think we've now done all the financial report. Next on the agenda is the operations committee. Do we have anything from the operations
I
committee?
believe we're going to have a meeting in June.
June 25th, I think.
I know, right, yeah. So that's the extent of the report right now.
Okay,
3 o'clock.
The, one of the questions the exec committee's kind of tossed around is when we hired James, we made part of the work that we would do a 6-month review and then a 12-month review. And so the 6-month review, as we talked about it, it's like, we should use that as a way to talk more broadly about how are we doing as a board? And, one of the questions might be, how does that's an ad hoc committee, and like, at what point is it gonna be done? Cause we've got staff and capacity to take over operations, and whether that's even appropriate for the
Yeah.
board.
Feel like that pretty
So-
much is what has happened.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean,
I mean, we were in a different situation
Yeah.
several months ago. So, I'll just share that as kind of our discussion on the exec committee. There's no one from the advisory committee, group, but maybe James, since you're gonna be kind of facilitating that.
Yeah, I think, the last time we met, we actually voted for 3 more people to be on that board. I guess I'm going to schedule a meeting with the 6 people, and then we'll go over our expectations and see what our marching orders are gonna be the first line of,
Okay,
we're gonna do.
appreciate that. Do you know if there's any, effort to continue to recruit, or is that,
I think that's what we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
I think what, in our last meeting, we talked about being more, pointed in the, community involvement we wanted to see on that board, so we would recruit people from their actual, what they do in day-to-day, to say, we need somebody with that voice on the advisory board, so we can have a well-rounded, board.
so that'd be kind of the first order of business for the committee, just to
That's the first order.
help grow itself to the
Yeah.
right, yeah,
For
good.
itself to
That makes a lot of
get
sense.
right voices, or get different voices. They're all right voices, but just
Yeah.
different voices.
Any questions about the advisory committee? All right, move on. I just wanted to have some space for some board discussion. As I just commented earlier about the planning for the mid-year review. The June meeting, June 26th, I believe, 27th. I know we'll have the bankers from Colorado will be here, so they had just notified us of that today. So we'll probably want to put some time on our agenda for that. But I also just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how do you want to go about trying to step back a bit and say, you know, where are we? We've got a lot done since October, and so in addition to doing a review for James, a performance review, we thought this might be a good time for us as a board to say, you know, we had the same goals in mind, because we did have some pretty clear goals that we took from listening to the city's interests and what we would do. And we kind of then threw it into the job description for the ED as a way to be clear, like, here's what we're needed to get done. So we thought this could be a good time, but I honestly wasn't sure, like, how much time you guys would want to have on that sort of discussion, and if you would want to do it in our regular board meeting, or if you want to change the time we're going to use for our board meeting. I just want to throw it out there, get some open discussion about it. Because I feel like we could go, you know, probably half a day on something like that, but I don't want to, I also want to give sufficient time. I'm assuming for the, your review, James, we'll probably go into executive session and just have a discussion with you, so. I have some other thoughts on that I was gonna bring to the exec committee, to give you some, you know, good feedback. I think we might be able to use a survey, just let people give some input so that you're feeling like it's not just the board's opinion, but also from others, like maybe your staff, or community partners, such and such. So if you have other thoughts on feedback that you would want, you know, we would talk about that in our exec committee.
Attention library patrons, the time is 7:30 and the library is closing at 8 p.m. We ask any patron needing a library card to come to the accounts desk immediately, since we will stop issuing new cards in 15 minutes. Any children or teens needing help calling for a ride home should go to the children's desk now. Thank you.
No, I don't have as much input as possible.
Yeah.
I welcome it all.
Okay. Other thoughts on just the idea of a broader discussion about well, I guess what I'm really thinking for is for the next 6 months, what are we really expecting and how do we give guidance to James? I think most everything that we initially expected you to take on, you've made pretty good progress. So I think that's where, as a board, we had that discussion in October and kind of said, yeah, we hear what the city's asking and we all agreed, like, let's take it on. So maybe hearing some thoughts or having a board discussion about what do we want to see for the rest of the year, or maybe, maybe even or into the next year.
Well, I think those are, important questions, and it does almost, to my mind, require a separation in these discussion items, because I think we can look back at what has occurred in the last 6 months and assess how we feel like James has, performed to those expectations. But we also, the discussion of the future projects and activities are going to be pretty, I think they should be fairly in-depth, and so I'm not sure that it fits within the context of a regular board meeting.
Okay.
I could see the review of, mid-year review, yes, but I think I would like to see us consider the opportunity in July sometime for a special meeting. I mean, it's hard to remember way back in December and January and November when we were meeting weekly.
Yeah.
And we've gotten away from that.
Yeah.
But, and I agree with you, Charlie, we have accomplished some of the things that we were wanting to accomplish when we were having those weekly meetings. And I think it would be valuable for us to have a special meeting established in the month of July. That would allow us to look forward and say, how are the programs that are, we are seeing desirable, how are they emerging? What additional features could we envision? I mean, the big one, I guess, that I still see thinking out there as a question mark is, will we have an additional pallet shelter area on campus at LCS? What's that going to entail?
Yeah.
I mean, at the same time, we know that James has identified a lot of structural and facility needs within the existing location, and that's those three projects also.
So last time we did this, we had both Misty and Jill kind of come in and do presentations, so we had clarity on, our two biggest funders, right? Like, what is it that they see, given that the city and the county have created a community-wide plan? And what do they understand, or what's their aspiration for our role in that plan? That was kind of the primary sense of that meeting. And, then we all questioned and had our discussion around what we kind of agreed to. Are you thinking something that would involve them again?
That
Bring them
makes
in?
sense.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They're gonna have information we wouldn't get otherwise.
Mhm.
Numbers, for instance, I think, just to throw one number out there, James reported, we've got 50 people in a pellet village that'll hold 50 people, we got 50 people on the waiting list.
Yeah.
Things like that there's this issue has not gone away just because we've done the things that we've done in the last 6 months. There's
Yeah, and
still challenges out there.
I remember we did some, back of the napkin math that night, and I forgot the total number, that we kind of came up with, but it was clearly like a bold, yeah, we're gonna
Yeah.
create this capacity that's gonna be significantly more than we've had. I've
We need
kind
to
of,
start talking about winter emergency.
in the summer,
Summer emergency.
yeah, summer is kind of like the
Yeah,
severe weather shelter.
yeah, so we
Okay,
got,
do you feel like we could do that in like our typical time frame, just a different day of July, like a different Thursday or something? Does that seem?
I think we should commit to it,
yeah, absolutely.
Rebecca, you got any thoughts?
So you're just thinking like a second July meeting?
Yeah, I mean. I'm gonna be at a conference in Detroit the week of our regular board meeting. So, and that was like the end of the month, so sometime mid-month, I think.
and I'm gonna be going to the last Rolling Stones concert in North America in the Ozarks.
What week is that?
We could all go and have a board retreat.
I mean, it's, yeah, I guess the announcement was today that the final Rolling Stones concert in North America will happen on July 21st at
Okay,
Bass Pro Shop.
so then, does that mean you won't be back before or for the meeting on the 25th?
I got you both, Trump. I got you both, Trump. My second grandchild's gonna be born sometime in July.
Uh-oh. Well, I'll put out
Yeah, let's see what's possible, people's schedule.
maybe the 11th or the 18th, those are the two other Thursdays.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
I can't do the 18th.
all right, well, maybe I'll send out a message and see how the 11th looks for the whole group and, I appreciate this, I think this is, yeah, I was starting to feel like we're trying to pack a lot into one night on the June meeting, and probably if we're gonna bring in Jill and Misty especially, we're gonna need to give some time for that discussion, so. Next item was just the staff appreciation event. I thought we could have. I was hoping we could have it here from you, James, if there's any progress on.
We're starting to
Trying to
meet
do
to
that.
kind of throw ideas together about how that would take place and. Yeah,
Okay.
we're starting to put that together.
I don't know if there's a timeline, but I don't know, just sooner than better, I guess. Just, it just feels like there's a part of the mid-year review in my head is just like taking stock of what's been accomplished and
Okay.
trying to give acknowledgement to, everybody's.
Sometime in July or first of
Everybody's-
August, or you want me
I
to,
wouldn't want to rush it,
I know, but.
it just feels like this is a good time to be reflective and to acknowledge
There's been a lot of.
those that have, yeah, yeah, and, I know there's an issue with turnover of staff, but there's some staff that have been around for a bit, so I don't know if there's like 1 year anniversaries, that kind of thing, like just maybe it sounds silly, but just kind of acknowledging that people hang in there and they did that with the hope that things were gonna get better, and I feel like things have gotten better, let's all take a breath and feel good about that. Future agenda items, I just put the list together, need to read through it. If there's nothing else, then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Let's adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made, seconded to adjourn at 7:39 PM. There's no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.